The Madman! You're Shaman, and here's Beakered Lightning. 1 star. Beakered Lightning is a 0 mana spell, and 0 mana spells do take special consideration, but we kind of have Zap as a measure for how good this might be. And this is 0 mana now, but 2 mana later. What kind of deck wants to run Beakered Lightning? Is it going to be Even Shaman? But Even Shaman is a board-centric deck, which doesn't really want to deal damage to all minions. Is it going to be a Control Shaman? But Shudderwock probably doesn't think that this deck is strong enough. And will a new Control Shaman rise about because of Beakered Lightning? Probably not, because why play Control Shaman when you can play Shudderwock Shaman? By virtue of Shudderwock Shaman destroying all other control decks and all other slower decks, it's just outclassing the other Shaman possible decks at the moment. Voltaic Burst, 1 star. It looks like a Thunderhead deck with the Overload combo, as well as this card itself is looking to build a board and then perhaps play Bloodlust. But I think that general plan is weaker than Even Shaman's plan. Omega Mind, 1 star. This is supposed to fit into a Control Shaman deck. It's a lot like the Priest card, actually. Decent stats, like reasonable stats you could play early before turn 10, but not great if you just play as a vanilla 2 mana 2/3 or 3 mana 3/4 in the case of Priest. And then should you make it to 10 mana, you get a Stabilize. But the problem is, this is a Control Shaman card, and Control Shaman gets outclassed by Shudderwock, and heck, even Shudderwock, which does actually have spells of Lightning Storm and Volcano. They wouldn't really run this because by that turn you're like almost winning, and why gain health instead of just winning? And they already have Healing Rain, and Healing Rain is basically outclassing Omega Mind. Menacing Nimbus, 4 stars. This card, I think, can actually just fit right into existing Even Shaman, and it's going to be a decent card. I don't think it's going to go into every Even Shaman. If that's the case and Even Shaman is tier 1, then Menacing Nimbus will be correct at 4. And if Menacing Nimbus is in all the Even Shaman decks, which it could also happen, and Even Shaman is tier 2, then this will also be the right rating. Extra Elemental plus the Elemental tag really makes that Earthen Might card better for Shaman as well, which is already being run. Elementary Reaction. Hesitant 2 stars. I think it could be higher. The reason why it could be higher is because it might fit into 2 already pretty good decks right now, but clearly if I only rated it 2 stars, I think it's not going to make that much of an impact in either. Shudderwock Shaman could run Elementary Reaction, but the main problems with that are they don't run that many elementals, and also it competes with the Keleseth on 2 spot. Which one's going to be better, I'm not sure, which is why I considered rating it 3 stars, but it's also possible that Shudderwock will be on the decline with the rise, potentially, of Control Warrior as a pretty tough counter. There's also the thought of putting it into Even Shaman. It is even, and Even Shaman certainly runs elementals, and I did just rate Menacing Nimbus a 4. But I think Even Shaman surprisingly doesn't run quite enough elementals, and also it's tough to give up the tempo in Even Shaman. You just kind of want to go, fill the board. So for that reason, even though it is a better Mimic pod if you fulfill the conditions, I'm still only giving it 2 stars. And sure, I'll make a side mention of what about Elemental Shaman deck, a completely new deck that it could go into. But Elemental Shaman is a value deck, and if you've seen the other class reviews, you know what I feel about value decks in this upcoming meta. But value decks are good. Elemental Shaman wasn't good last time, and a 2 mana draw 2 is not going to be enough to push it into being good. Electro Storm Surge, 5 stars. What a powerful effect. Not only 3 mana 3/3, but doubles whatever spell you play, and you get a 3/3 with it. Just pure value. It goes into a great existing deck, goes into pretty much every Shaman deck that has a spell that can be consistently cast for the upcoming plenty of years. Thunderhead. This is a potential game changer card, 1 star. So I considered putting this into Even Shaman, and there aren't quite enough Overload cards to make that work. And then I considered making a Thunderhead deck. Before you make the claim of, you know, Trump doesn't rate cards off of new decks that could come about, he just looks about if they fit in the present metas. No, I looked into the Overload deck, Here's the amount of cards that I would put in the deck with Overload that are considered good, like Zap, Stormforged Axe, Spirit Wolves, Lava Burst. You wouldn't put in Lightning Storm or Volcano necessarily, but Lightning Storm is pretty close because this is a minion-based deck. Lightning Bolt, of course, and that's it. I think I have 6 fingers up. Anyways, the point though is that of those Overload cards, quite a few of those are questionable, like the Axe and running Lightning Storm in a aggro deck. This seems like it's the type of deck that would flood the board with a bunch of stuff and then try to Bloodlust them, perhaps with the help of Electro Storm Surge, perhaps with the help of the upcoming card Storm Chaser. It is an elemental as well, which is nice. And while the payoff of each time you play Thunderhead and you play an Overload spell is you're getting basically a card that's worth between 1 and 2 mana, it's just that I don't see this deck as being quite strong enough. The tokens are kind of weak, you're building around just one card, the cards itself in the deck aren't very strong. I tried to build the deck and it didn't look good. If you're trying to create a bunch of stuff, I think even Shaman does it better. Storm Chaser, 3 stars. Storm Chaser is a very good card, and it does fit into current decks, as well as future decks, as well as possible other decks. It could go into Shudderwalk as perhaps a one-of, and I think it's going to be a tech option because it draws you your Volcano. If you're playing an aggro deck and you play Storm Chaser, then it draws you Bloodlust. So if you're playing against an aggressive token deck and they play the Storm Chaser, you have to pretty much always assume they have Bloodlust if they manage to draw a card. In fact, if they manage to not draw a card, then you probably think they have 2 Bloodlust in their hand. Eureka! 1 star. So Eureka also enables Shaman to do some pretty crazy Malagos stuff, but this is the case where we're going to say, why play Shaman and having your Eureka get your Malagos and then only have 4 mana left over when you can play Druid and then get your Malagos and then have 10 mana left over after you break the twig, or 6 mana left over after you play your Floop, and Shaman doesn't have 0 mana deal damage spells, by the way. So new deck archetype possible, but I don't think it'll be good enough to oust the current combo decks. And finally, the Stormbringer, 1 star. Instead of transforming your minions into random legendary minions in these decks that get a bunch of minions out, try casting Bloodlust and killing your opponent. The Shaman gets some good stuff. Shudderwalk gets Electro Storm Surge, as well as the possibility to put in Storm Chaser and Elementary Reaction, and even Shaman gets Menacing Nimbus with also the choice of possibly Elementary Reaction. As well, some strong cards are printed, which given more support should look pretty strong, such as Thunderhead and Voltaic Burst.